Let us pray. Almighty God, where you have called us to govern this province, we ask your help to make decisions and laws that will be just and that will promote the interests of the people. Almagtige God, ons bid dat u gedurende ons vergadering ons die nodige wysheid sal gee en ons motiewe suiwer sal hou en dat u ons sal help om al ons tekortkominge te oorkom en al ons besluite aan u op te dra. Sikalela lethu na bantu balo, umusile ukulungu kwepondo lethu. Nkosi sikalela iAfrika, thina abantwana bayo, nkokela inkokeli zayo, uniki upolo iAfrika. All this we beg in your holy name. Amen. Please be seated. Order, honourable members. Before we proceed, I would like to remind members about some of the logistical arrangements. As has been our practice to date, honourable members will participate in the sitting of the House, both from the chamber with the presiding officer and the table staff and via Microsoft Teams. Our standing rules have accordingly been amended to accommodate such hybrid sittings. The quorum requirements for the sitting of the House are provided for in the Constitution and in the standing rules. Honourable members, unless there is an indication of unanimous concurrence, voting will be confined to members present in the House and on the hybrid system who are entitled to cast their votes as per the ATC issued on the 11th of August 2020. The Sergeant at Arms will record members' attendance. In instances where these directives, honourable members, do not cover a particular eventuality, the standing rules must apply, and in instances where the rules cannot be applied, the ruling by the presiding officer is final. Honourable members, the media have also been granted access to the MS Teams meeting as guests of the WCPP. However, I wish to remind the members of the press that they may not use the chat room or speak or activate their cameras while the sitting is in progress. Honourable members, for the sitting, language translation services are available in the chamber as usual and on Microsoft Teams via the respective channels. Honourable members, I wish to remind you that no interjections are permitted during these hybrid sittings, and to this end, I draw your attention to Rule 40 of our standing rules. With that being said, honourable members, good morning, and to the guests in the gallery, welcome. In particular, Mr. van der Westhuizen, who was a member of this House in the previous parliamentary session. Welcome to you and your guests, and to the guests on my left-hand side in the gallery. I recognise the Chief Whip.
Good morning, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, I move without notice that notwithstanding Rule 163, the House considers the principle and finalisation of the Western Cape Appropriation Bill B4 of 2025 on Wednesday, 11 June 2025. I so move.
Thank you very much. My apologies. Thank you very much, Chief Whip. Honourable members, the Secretary will read the first order of the day.
Consideration of principles of the Western Cape Appropriation Bill B4 2025.
Thank you very much. I recognise the Honourable Minister.
Honourable Speaker, good morning to everyone. On Tuesday, 3 June 2025, I retabled the Western Cape 2025 main budget. The tabling of the budget was necessary following Minister Enoch Godongwana's withdrawal of the National Budget and the National Division of Revenue Bill. Section 27 of the Public Finance Management Act requires that our appropriations bill be retabled to ensure legal compliance of all provincial budgetary processes. Our priorities remain unchanged. Our commitment to serving the people of the Western Cape remains unwavering, and we are on a mission to grow the economy and create jobs. We have tabled an 89.316 billion rand budget for 2025-26, which totals 269.524 billion rand over the next 3 financial years. And I therefore request this House to please consider the bill accordingly. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. I have been informed by the Chief Whip that the Programming Authority resolved that there would be no list of speakers and that parties who wish to do so will now be afforded an opportunity to make a declaration for a maximum of 3 minutes each. I recognize the ANC.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The ANC rejects the provincial budget that was retabled by MEC of Finance State Department in this House on the 3rd of June 2025, as she stated that there are no changes to what she presented to this House on the first tabling of this very provincial budget on the 27th March 2025. Actually, we must point out that we are confronted with a travesty of justice in this province under the DA rule. The national budget was rejected and the very DA was in the forefront thereof. Subsequently, the Division of Revenue Bill was withdrawn by National Minister Kodongwana on the 24th of April 2025. The situation caused the effect of no legal basis of the budget tabled by MEC Batman on the 27th of March in this House, as the constitutionality thereof was eroded. What was then the MEC of Finance dragging us to when she made a premature, ill-conceived budget presentation on the 27th of March 2025? Was it the DA strategy of always playing to the gallery to exploit the genuine issues of the citizens, as with this budget they claimed being voices of the poor? The dangers we are subjecting ourselves and the legislative sector to is to enable political expediency to override the democratic institutions at will. Why should provinces continue to present provincial budgets when the very fiscal framework and expenditure proposals has not been finalized and adopted by the National Assembly? What are the repercussions of allowing this trend where the Division of Revenue and Appropriations Bill were not finalized, but already provincial treasuries have already determined allocation against unconfirmed allocations, even when the safeguards in the PFMA for government to spend 45% of its budget when there are delays of such a nature? Here we are in another DA theater of gimmicks at a cost to taxpayers, where the DA and their MEC of Finance claim they are retabling the same budget, and this parliament must engage in some makeshift process that has no significant, no substantive impact to the product they present to this House on the 27th March 2025. They have used their majority on this House to show a middle finger to the views of the public and the opposition parties that were registered through the discussions held in the various standing committees of the various votes. This retabling is nothing but a rubber stamp of a DA process which they choose to pass through this parliament that has been rendered toothless and deliberately disempowered this House to adopt its own money bills amendment procedure and related matters act, a process stalled by this very MEC State Department when she was a chairperson of the Budget and Finance Committee in the 6th Parliament. Talk about how DA uses javelin throwing of its public reps to be referees and players in weakening state institutions for parties' ends. The ANC rejects this budget retabling. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Nkontlo. I recognize the PA.
Speaker, good morning, and good morning to all honorable members in the House. Speaker, the retabling of the budget gives us an opportunity, yet another opportunity for the House to look afresh at it and interrogate the financial commitments made by this administration. While the numbers in this document reflects bigger allocations for some people in the Western Cape, it remain numbers. It is a status quo approach in a time demanding bold action and realignment. Speaker, this budget only shows that again the Cape Metro will be favored in the implementation of it. It must include the other regions if we really want to make a difference and if we really want to be a government for all the people of the Western Cape. Speaker, the budget also the spending on this budget will also be again on the SEZ that is already established, but the economic development and support to other regions and other municipalities is non-existent. It is important to say, Speaker, that the jobs for growth strategy must realize we need we're really needed. The vulnerable people who were left behind for so long. The people of the Western Cape are not asking for handouts. They are demanding fair access to opportunities and equitable public investment. Honorable Speaker, we also have to address the excessive use of consultants. It is shown, it's shown in the previous budget and it is shown again. The mobility department is one of the departments that is straight reliance on consultants. It is important to make sure that within the consultants that there is a strategy to make sure that we empower our own people. This administration and this government always say to municipalities that they need to employ people within their own departments, yet we are not doing the same from a provincial perspective. In the same token, Speaker, we have to address the fact that government contracts only goes to big companies while the SMEs are struggling. In the Go George, there are big companies that deals with a implementation strategy, yet there are smaller companies that might have the skills and the capacity to do so. Honorable Speaker, it is in conclusion, we are confronted with a appropriation bill that changes titles, a financial exercise that speaks more to compliance than compassion. The Patriotic Alliance remains resolute in our commitment to advocate for those whose voices are often ignored in these chambers, the less fortunate, the working poor, the unemployed graduates, in the forgotten corners of the province. With all that said, Speaker, the Patriotic Alliance still support this budget because we need it to make sure that we provide services to the people of the Western Cape. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Before I recognize the EFF, can I please ask that I see the digital clock is now on the screen. I recognize the Economic Freedom Fighters.
Thank you very much, Somlomo. Greetings to the House at large. The Economic Freedom Fighters does not support the budget. Speaker, on the previous occasion, when we dealt with the very same budget, I emphasized the issue of safety in the Western Cape as a matter of going concern. It is, however, concerning that since then, the situation has even become more worse as a result of the ongoing taxi violence in areas such as Umfuleni and Somerset West, which continues to rob our people's lives. Speaker, the lives are being lost in instances where the ongoing conflict could have been resolved through dialogue. At the heart of these conflicts lies a dispute over a taxi routes which should be administered by the Provincial Department of Mobility when issuing taxi permits. Some of these conflicts, Speaker, which easily descend into violence and add into the murder rate, are a result of leadership vacuum in the province. As Somlomo, the Western Cape needs a proactive leadership which is capable of mitigating against conflicts. This provincial government should have noticed early that there is a brewing conflict within the taxi industry and should have stepped in early to resolve whatever the conflict was. This is so because these conflicts do not only affect those running the taxi industry, as commuters as well end up being caught in the crossfire. Somlomo, elsewhere, investigations conducted by a media house Ground Up shows that children as young as 12 years old are now recruited in high numbers by gang members in the province for purposes aiding criminals with concealing dangerous weapons and participate in other criminal activities. Not only, Speaker, do we need a budget that speaks to all these things, we also need real solutions to these problems, because as we have seen with so-called safety plan, money continue being spent every year on the other hand, all in the name of fighting crime, while the crime rate in the province continues to escalate on the other hand. We are told that, Speaker, 43 billion will be set aside for the so-called growth for jobs. However, at the end of this financial year, unemployment rate will be at the same position or move slightly. The reality is that our youth has given up on ever finding employment in this province. It is for that reason why they have resorted into selling drugs, demanding protection fees, and participating in other criminal activities. Speaker, the budget must speak to building of more classroom and provisions being made to absorb these learners. I thank you, Speaker. I see my time is up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I recognize the NCC.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you. Greetings to all. I greet you all in the name of His Majesty. Honorable Speaker, Honorable Premier, fellow members of the Western Cape Provincial Legislative, I greet you all. Paitses. Speaker, the budget presented to us has the potential to address some of the most pressing issues facing our province. And as we move forward, I urge this House to prioritize the following key areas. Speaker, we must accelerate the process of land restitution and address the historical injustices faced by our people. This includes providing support to the claimants, resolving outstanding claims, and ensuring that we restore land and assist with the utilizing of the land productively. Speaker, the painful legacy of the forceful removals under the apartheid continues to haunt our communities. We must commit to providing reparation and support to the affected families and assure that we undo the injustices of the past by allowing this budget to assist this government in restoring the dignity of the colored community. Daar sal nooit 'n Cape Flats gewees het as die wit mense nie die bruin mense se huise afgevat het en colored areas, wit areas gedeclared het. Speaker, the lack of political will to prioritize the indigenous people of the Western Cape, daar faal die budget al klaar. Now we were told that 80% of the budget over the next 3 years will be spent on education, health, housing, and social protection in the Western Cape province. But Speaker, these are big numbers that are being tabled, and these numbers will stay just numbers in a report if there's no real political will to see these changes that these budgets seeks to address. Speaker, corruption by the DA leaders in Machikama, George, Swellendam, Saldanha, and the city of Cape Town, knowing that there's no political will to address these corruption issues, this will surely sink these plans long before the first cent is deposited. But Speaker, in conclusion, I urge this House to work towards to make sure that no overseas companies benefit from this budget and to ensure that our budget priorities align with the needs and the aspirations of the people of the Western Cape. Now, let us undo what the evil that was created by the imperialists and let us strive towards equality for all in order for us to create an equitable and prosperous society for all. I do thank you. Amasi.
Thank you very much, Honorable Jacobs. I recognize the Freedom Front Plus.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, the Freedom Front Plus notes the retabling of the budget as it is mainly a legal compliance in terms of the PFMA. Our position has not changed in terms of our initial support for the budget. However, Speaker, I wish to mention the following, which is very important to note today. The Constitution has set standards upon which this government must deliver. The right of access to adequate housing has been denied to many people. Even after 20 years, they continue living in backyards and informal settlements. The demand for housing has increased by 83.2% between 2015 and 2024, while the provision for housing has decreased, Speaker, for the same period. The constitutional standard also sets a right to life. But many people are denied this. They are being murdered in this province, Speaker. We are the official murder capital of South Africa. Speaker, we are becoming an aging population, according to Stats SA. And yet, there are not sufficient accommodation for pensioners to live a dignified life in their old age. The funding from national is inadequate to address the growing needs of the Western Cape. The budget will not be sufficient to turn back the tide of our crisis. But this budget is fait accompli. We have to accept what has been decided for us. And the Western Cape must continue to look forward and say that we will pursue the ideal of federal autonomy. as was raised by my father in the 6th Parliament. Devolution of powers to the Western Cape is an important objective if we want to address this situation of our financial dependency on national. Finance must follow function is a principle, which we hope with more powers we will get more finance. And we call upon the DA and the GNU to make this a point of discussion at national, and the Freedom Front Plus will play their role in this regard. In closing, Speaker.
Honourable member, your time has expired.
Thank you, Speaker. In closing, we do support, but the declining financial allocation in real terms, while growing a population in the Western Cape, is a recipe for disaster, Speaker, which must be noted. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I recognize Al-Jamaa.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Speaker, when we look at provincial treasury, we must ask the question, where is the budget to protect our children? Where is the budget to protect our children from bullets? Because here in the Western Cape, there are more drug dens than schools. Crime is not just a criminal issue, it's a socio-economic crisis. Children are dying in gang crossfires. Women are hiding from abusers with nowhere safe to go. Entire communities are held hostage by drugs, gangsterism, and unemployment. We call on Treasury to urgently increase budget allocation towards community-based safety programs, support for shelters for abused women and children, youth development and after-school initiatives that offer an alternative to gangs. Honorable Speaker, a truly thriving economy must be rooted in justice. That means real support for emerging farmers and land reform, access to capital for small businesses, a tourism sector that uplifts rural areas, and a budget that prioritizes safety, dignity, and opportunity, especially for our youth. Until then, we cannot claim progress. We cannot talk about growth while the majority remain outside the gates of opportunity. I thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I recognize the ACDP.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, the ACDP supports the budget. Speaker, when we look at the budget, and what's concerning is that safety is eating into the budget, because when we engage education, they must allocate now money for safety. When you speak to health, they must have they're looking at taking off their essential money and for safety. The point I want to make, Speaker, is that we need a devolution of police powers. That is what we need, because police is under-resourced. People are not safe. We saw now in the last statistics that murder has gone up. Many other categories has gone down, but murder has gone up. And as the ACDP, we did it previously, and we're calling also for our learners to be safe. Our learners is not even safe going to school. And the walking bus was very, very effective, getting our learners safe to school. There's MEC Winger. We went to go visit the walking bus. So safety is a major concern, and I believe the province can do so well if police powers is devolved and money can be spent elsewhere. Engaging health department, they say to us, listen, our job is, to look at healthcare, but now we must take from our money for security of our buildings that have been vandalized, for our staff that's not safe. The same with education. Education is there to teach, but some of their budget must not go to the safety programs. It's a major concern. And I think one way to go forward is when we call for the devolution of police powers so that the province can have operational powers over the police, saying we don't have enough policemen in X, let's put policemen there. So we're calling for the evolution. We believe the province can save quite a bit of money when you have total control of police. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you very much, Honorable Christians. I recognize Good.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, the 2025 Western Cape Budget 2.0 had the opportunity to shift away from its original form and actually prioritize the long-term needs of our people, but instead it has continued to favor short-term optics. Despite allocating 101 billion rand to education over the MTEF, our schools are struggling under the weight of increasing enrollment, overcrowded classrooms, and a shortage of teachers. The additional 549 million allocated for learner growth over the next 3 years is simply inadequate. True investment in the future demands proper infrastructure, well-paid teachers, and expanded educational support, all of which is insufficiently addressed in this budget. We welcome the announcement from the National Minister that extra funding will be allocated to education and health and will come into effect later this year. However, we will wait with bated breath to see how the Western Cape government spends this extra funding. Meanwhile, the province has chosen to pour nearly 4 billion rand into safety programs, including 1.3 billion for the Law Enforcement Advancement Program and other police initiatives over the MTEF. Additionally, the safety sector has received almost double its equitable share this year, jumping from 347 million to 684 million, funds that could have bolstered education. And despite these massive expenditures, crime and gang violence remain rampant. More police and reactive measures are not enough. Addressing the root causes of crime, poverty, inequality, and lack of economic opportunities is what is needed. Despite an uptick in the discourse about moving away from private funding, especially for public infrastructure, the Western Cape government has doubled down and stuck to its increasing reliance on private funding to finance public infrastructure, with plans for a 200 billion rand pipeline of bankable projects by 2030. Private investors expect returns, which could lead to creeping privatization, user fees for essential services, and reduced public accountability. The details of these agreements also remain opaque, raising concerns around long-term financial risks. If these projects fail, it will be taxpayers who will ultimately bear the burden. This Budget 2.0 does not deviate from its original form in any meaningful way. This government heard our calls in March when we critiqued Budget 1.0, but those calls fell on deaf ears. It still underfunds education, overspends on ineffective policing, and invites private interests into public infrastructure without transparency. The people of the Western Cape deserve leadership that prioritizes their needs, not one that shifts responsibility to the private sector while neglecting systemic challenges. We need bold leadership, not just big numbers, and we need a budget that truly invests in education, community-driven safety initiatives, and a well-funded public healthcare system. Only then can we build a just and sustainable future for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Heron. I recognize the DA.
Honorable Speaker, South Africa stands at a crossroads. Our national economy is in crisis, growth is faltering, and joblessness continues to rise. But here in the Western Cape, we are stepping up. We are building a province that works for everyone. And that is exactly why nearly 80% of our budget over the medium-term expenditure framework is committed to social services, because dignity is a non-negotiable. The budget protects and strengthens the services that matter most: quality education, reliable healthcare, and critical social development programs. Over 215 billion will be invested in frontline services, 101 billion in education to improve outcomes and expand access, 100 billion in healthcare to strengthen our facilities and workforce, and 8.4 billion in social development to support the most vulnerable families and communities. In regions often overlooked by the national government, we are deliberately doing more. In the Central Karoo, per capita spending is 34% higher than the provincial average. This is proof that this budget reaches far beyond just the metros. We are building a province where no one is left behind. Honourable Speaker, the Western Cape also has the lowest unemployment rate in the country, standing at 19.6%. This is not by chance, but rather as a result of focused action. Through our Growth for Jobs strategy, we are building an economy that includes the entrepreneur in Kailicha, the farmer in Beaufort West, and the factory worker in George. That is why 31 billion is being directed towards infrastructure to better connect rural towns to opportunity. It is exactly why we're cutting red tape with 45 million in support to make doing business easier. And it's why 382 million will go to 17 green energy projects so that homes stay powered and industries can keep producing. The Western Cape already leads South Africa with the lowest inequality and the highest human development index. But we are not done. With this budget, we are building a province where progress is measured not just in rand, but in lives uplifted. Speaker, to this end, the DA supports this budget. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Johnson. Honourable Boyson, is that a point of order?
Mr. Speaker, I'm standing on a point of clarity. May I raise?
What you can address me?
Mr. Speaker, firstly, is it parliamentary to use the term middle finger? Because we know the true reference of the meaning middle finger. And secondly, Mr. Speaker, when members vote against the budget, how would their remuneration be treated?
Thank you. That is, I will.
Please take this member to a workshop.
Order, members. There was a point of order, Honourable Boyson. Firstly, if you raise
There's
a
no
point of
point of
order,
order.
you can't raise 2 points of order with substantially different points of orders. That's the first point. So I'm going to rule on your first point, and I will consult Hansard to check the pretext, context, and post-text of that contribution by the member, and I'll revert back to the House. And secondly, that is not a point of order on your second point. I now recognize the Honourable the Minister.
Thank you so much, Speaker. Speaker, I'll try and pair some of the comments together. In terms of the parliamentary process, I'm not going to speak on behalf of Parliament or the programming authority that determines the program of the House, including the program that is before us today. To my knowledge, the particular process was proposed by the largest opposition party in our House, and I would encourage the members to engage their respective party representatives on the particular body if they disagree with the suggestions that were made by the particular party. In terms of the government procedure, it's the same procedure we follow every year. It's not a new procedure, and we always aim to conclude our provincial budget before the financial year start for certainty and stability in the system. And in terms of the legal procedure followed, we have followed the advice and guidance of the National Treasury, of the legal unit within the Department of the Premier, of the Provincial Treasury, as well as procedural guidance from the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. And I'm currently comfortable with that legal procedure being in order from our side. In terms of the Money Bills Amendment Bill, it is before Budget Committee, and it is something I'm very passionate about myself, Speaker. As you know, in the previous term, I introduced the particular resolution that we work on that particular bill. But due to the nature of the bill and my new role now, it would be inappropriate for a finance minister to introduce such legislation, which is why I brought the matter in my previous role where it would have been appropriate as budget chair at the time. And I would encourage the members of the budget committee to continue with that work, because I do think it's very important work and that it would assist us in future budget matters. The one member, Constable, mentioned the rural areas and that we need to spend more money on rural areas. I would like to thank the member for the support of the budget. I would also like to reiterate to this House that despite the average per capita of this budget in the Western Cape being 11,634 Rand per person. So if anyone at home is watching, if you have to take our full budget and divide it by everyone in the Western Cape, the average per person is 11,634 Rand. And in the Central Karoo, we're actually spending 15,609 Rand per person. And in the Garden Route, for example, we're spending 11,670 Rand per person. So that's actually above the average per capita. So people in the Central Karoo, from which I know the members very passionate about, is actually getting a larger average per capita based on this budget. In terms of employment, employment is still high, despite the fact that employment has come down in our province. Employment has decreased. He'll know that employment for especially coloured and African Black components as per Stats SA has increased. And we've also budgeted 43.8 billion Rand for our growth for jobs, portfolios and programs within this particular budget, so to make sure that we don't stop at 19.6%, that we decrease that employment figure even further. The member Lita Kong from EFF mentioned the asked questions about safety. We are allocating 3.96 billion Rand for safety in our budget, including additional money for the Provincial Safety Intelligence Center, because we need to make sure that that data and evidence informs our safety programs. The member asked about where are our infrastructure money in education. We also received the BFI funding for education from National, and the departments, they worked very hard on being able to get these documents and applications over the line. So it's the Western Cape government and the departments can be proud to say that National Treasury has confidence to be able to give us this additional money from BFI. A member, Jacobs, mentioned the land restitution. Land restitution is a national mandate, so I would recommend that the member bring those particular items into the DORA Division of Revenue Bill process, should the member wish. In terms of corruption, please do report corruption where you have evidence. I would hate for any member of this House to be sitting on evidence of corruption and not reporting it in terms of relevant legislation. So please do submit that to the respective body, depending on the nature of the allegation. The member mentioned no overseas company should benefit from this budget. I just need to make this House aware that, for example, the MS Teams system that we are currently using to have this sitting as hybrid is paid for to an international company, because we don't own MS Teams in South Africa. So in the budget, if you had to say, for example, no overseas companies allowed to benefit from this budget, we would have to cut all MS Teams in the whole Western Cape government, including all licenses for internet and things that we have to use government programs for. So I just want to caution us not to make blanket statements in this regard, because sometimes there's something out of our country that we don't make and we have to import it. And that is not my fault. I don't create MS Teams, but we do need it. The member from the EFF, sorry, not EFF, Vryheidsfront Plus, mentioned that that we are the safety capital. We are not the safety capital anymore, Speaker, and I just need to put that on record. The member also indicated that we need to look after our elderly, and I completely agree we need to look after our elderly. This is why we increase the subsidies in the social development budget, and this includes for the elderly programs. And it's actually the first time that we've increased these particular subsidies in, I think, 8 years. And that comes from money from the Provincial Revenue Fund. It's not from national. It's our own money in the province that we took in order to be able to increase those subsidies. The member also asked that we call upon the DA in the GNU to make certain decisions. To my knowledge, the member also has a colleague from their particular
Honourable Minister, please take your seat. I recognize the Honourable Marais. Is that a point of order?
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I just wanted to, the Minister says that I said that we are the safety capital. I said we are the murder capital. Just a correction for the Minister.
All right. Honourable members, I note your point. Honourable Murray, Honourable Minister, you may continue.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you for that correction. I did mean murder capital, but you could, I guess, in terms of statistics, you could probably argue both. But that is why we need to make sure that we spend that 3.9 billion rand on safety in order to bring the murder rate down. Despite us not being the murder capital in South Africa anymore, one murder is one too many. So we need to continue working to bring those figures down. And we hope that the member will support us in this efforts. Member Brinkhuis asked what are our budget items in order to protect children over and above what it was already in departmental baselines previously. We are giving from the Provincial Revenue Fund, we are giving an additional billion rand to education in their budget. That's from the, so out of the 3.2 billion rand of the Provincial Revenue Fund, 1 billion is going to education, 755 million rand is going to health. We are, for example, spending 6.2 million rand on the Provincial Safety Intelligence Center. We are giving additional funding for agriculture, education, and training. We're giving additional money for the Year Beyond Library Project. We're getting additional money for safeguarding facilities and social development, an extra 15 million rand for humanitarian relief. In infrastructure's budget, you will see that we took out of the asset reserve in order to assist with the building of the CYCC, which is a Children's Youth Care Center, as that's 35 million rand, which infrastructure is building on behalf and doing on behalf of social development. There's money for GBV, there's money for TCC services, there's additional money for Swims app, and all of these items are over and above what is already in departmental baselines and their particular programs previously. In terms of safety money being taken from education and health, that is not true. Both budgets of education and health have increased. What I heard was safety money is coming from education and health, but that is not true. And what I'll do is I'll just quickly pair the funding together. The PRF, for example, the Provincial Revenue Fund put into this budget 3.2 billion rand. Out of that 3.2 billion rand, we've increased the education budget by 1 billion. We've increased the health budget by 755 million rand. And when you look at the data that goes into the pairs from health, from education, and from social development, that equals 78% the data. But when you look at the pairs that we've allocated to health, education, and social development in the budget, it equates to 84.62%. So that's almost a 7% above the data that goes into the pairs nationally. And in education specifically, their pairs amount in their budget is just under 45%, which is the highest it's ever been, but it's also above the National Treasury recommendation of 44% in this regard. It also should be noted that PIS is not a budgeting tool, it's a funding tool. So I'm just going to try and pair some of those questions together. But I do agree with the member that safety must be devolved. We do need more powers, and we need to be able to continue fighting for that devolution so that we're able to bring that murder rate down. We really do need to do that.
Yeah.
In terms of, thank you, and I'm sure that the members online will also, WhatsApp their colleagues from their political parties and not also only rely on the DA WhatsApps to go to national. In terms of the national education and health funding that will be coming later in the year to us, that will be earmarked from the National Treasury. So we will essentially just be like a bank account passing the money along to the respective departments and for the particular purposes. In education particularly, the earmarked funding will be for the implementation of the Better Bill in that regard. In terms of private funding and the agreements being opaque, I'm not sure what the member is referring to because I have not signed any loan agreements binding this province. In terms of the Borrowing Act of South Africa, and in the province, in terms of borrowing, legally only the MEC for Finance is allowed to sign off a loan. Not only do you have to then sign off this loan, that has to go to the National Loans Committee meeting, which is convened by the National Finance Minister, and all 9 MECs are there. So even if I had to sign off on a loan, that loan is not effective until all MECs for finance, including the finance minister, has also signed off on such a loan, and none of that has happened. So I don't know what the member means in terms of the agreements being opaque. However, for example, there is a committee meeting tomorrow. Tomorrow's Thursday. Tomorrow in provincial parliament, dealing with alternative and blended financing in our province, where the chairpersons of finance and infrastructure is calling us to come and explain what does this mean. And I would encourage the member to attend these committee sessions, because this is what oversight means. Is we have tabled this document, we've tabled this vision of what we want to do, and part of the parliamentary oversight is we must come explain to parliament what does this mean. Not only that, but there is legal oversight mechanisms through the budget committee on these items, as well as through the loans committee. I mean, I was in a loans committee meeting yesterday regarding Gauteng matters. And even when you go to the loans committee, the province that submits the request does not have a vote. So you can't vote on your own stuff. The other 8 finance ministers and the national ministers who say, are we giving you permission to go out on a loan? So there are many areas for oversight, both from a national treasury perspective, both from the other MECs, to make sure that provinces don't throw the country into debt irresponsibly, but also through the respective legislatures and the national parliaments and the NCOP and so on. So we need to use our oversight mechanisms in this regard. In terms of, Honourable Speaker, I just want to conclude by saying that, you know, at the beginning of the year, the Premier urged all of us at the State of the Province address to step up. And this budget process, even though we're calling it 2.0, is testament to that. It's that we are a province with all of our institutions coming together and stepping up to serve the people of the Western Cape. It is a budget period tested the resilience of the Western Cape government and the Provincial Treasury to navigate complex fiscal processes in an uncertain national context. And this government demonstrated stability through its unwavering commitment to fiscal stability, discipline, and sustainability. And we maintain strict cash flow protocols to protect service delivery in the province. As you would know, Speaker, the PMA also has specific rules to say if a budget has not been passed yet, how much money we're allowed to use, and we're well within our legal limit, making sure that our cash flow protocols are maintained. And I want to therefore extend my gratitude to the Provincial Treasury for their technical excellence and for keeping a steady hand in spite of the turbulent waters we had to navigate, as well as recognizing the legal services in the Department of the Premier for their guidance throughout this process. I want to thank the Speakerage and the officials of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament for your procedural guidance, and to the political party leadership represented in this House, thank you for rising above the politics to offer cooperation as we steer ourselves through these unprecedented times, including giving us permission through the Programming Authority for the particular procedures. Honourable Speaker, lastly, I want to acknowledge the people of the Western Cape, whether you engaged with us at a First Thursday or submitted your tips using the Budget with Deirdre link or simply left a comment on social media. Really, thank you so much. And thank you for trusting the Western Cape government to keep working for you. Speaker, I want to conclude by acknowledging the contributions by the respective speakers in the declarations during today's sitting, especially the valuable and constructive comments on this particular budget, and where relevant, we will consider the respective inputs for future processes. I thank you and request that this House please adopt the bill.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Honourable members, that concludes the debate on the consideration of the principle of the bill. Are there any objections to the approval of the principle of the bill? No objections. Agreed to.
Speaker, I've got my hands up.
Order, members. Are there an objection to the approval of the consideration of the bill?
Yes, we object.
There is an objection. All those in favor of the approval of the consideration of the principle of the bill being adopted, please say yes. Those not in favor of the consideration of the approval of the principle of the bill, please say no.
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 No. No.
I think the ayes have it. Order, members. I think the ayes have it. The Secretary will read the bill.
Western Cape Appropriation Bill.
Thank you very much. The Secretary will read the second order of the day.
Consideration of votes and schedule. Western Cape Appropriation Bill.
Thank you very much. Parties now have an opportunity to make a declaration covering all the votes. I have been informed by the Chief Whip that the Programming Authority resolved that there would be no list of speakers and that parties who wish to do so will now be afforded an opportunity to make a declaration for a maximum of 3 minutes each. I will now afford parties an opportunity to make a declaration if they so wish. I recognize the ANC.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The ANC rises to participate in this debate with grave concerns about the lived realities of our people in the Western Cape, which this budget fails to address. The regression in municipal audit outcomes, the deepening food insecurity crisis, and the chronic underspending on human settlements grants exposes an uncaring government that prioritizes optics over tangible change. The Auditor General's report reveals a disturbing decline in audit outcomes for Western Cape municipalities, with only 20 clean audits in 2023-24, decreasing from 22 in 2020 to 2021. This regression demands urgent intervention from the Provincial Treasury. Poor financial management, irregular expenditure, and weak procurement processes are robbing communities of services. Yet this budget lacks concrete measures to hold municipalities accountable or rebuild institutional integrity. While the DA boasts of a well-run province and municipalities, 23.2% of 23.2% of people in the city of Cape Town face food insecurity, according to SERI's recent report. On the other hand, the Green Cape's 2016 Marketing Intelligence Report revealed that 7.7 million tons of waste produced annually in this province, with 2.9 million tons being organic waste that include food from crops, crop waste, food production waste, and retail, hospitality, and wholesale waste. The Department of Health's pilot project in partnership with GGMT to address stunting is welcomed, but our appeal is for this number to be increased so that more and more mothers and children can benefit. The DA's neglect of the poor is starkest in the failure to spend human settlement grant, while over 600,000 people languish on the housing demand database. Informal settlements like Kaelija and Danun flood annually, yet millions of rand earmarked for informal settlements upgrading were not spent and returned to the National Treasury. Shockingly, 17 projects under MEC CIMA's watch were undertaken without approved business plan. Why is public money being spent without oversight? We demand an investigation into this reckless mismanagement. The ANC rejects this budget that entrenches inequality. It ignores the Cape Flats, where over 1,000 lives were lost in violence in 3 months and 1,000 women and children suffered sexual violence. It abandons the poor while subsidizing privilege. The ANC cannot support a budget that fails to transform the apartheid spatial economy, address hunger, or audit its own failures. The people deserve better. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Nkontlo. I recognize the PA.
Greetings, Speaker, and all the people of the Western Cape. I'm speaking on behalf of the Patriotic Alliance. Speaker, we are not here only to criticize, but to see that there's well-being for all our people in the Western Cape. Our main concern is the distribution and the implementation of the budget and the resources. We again ask for intervention in education, safety, social development, job creation, and housing. Speaker, daar moet indringend gekyk word na die rol van munisipaliteite en die uitrol van die begroting. Munisipaliteite wat nie hul diensleweringsrol kan vervul nie, moet aangespreek word en gehelp word. The PA supports the budget and the budget votes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I recognize the EFF.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, the amount allocated for safety is too little, considering that this money needs to be directed to fighting the scourge of crime in this province, which is ever increasing, whilst the budget allocation is not really catching up. Speaker, drugs and alcohol remain a huge concern in the province as they account and play a decisive role in most of the crimes committed in this province. We still have a community safety provincial department, which is incapable of identifying and shutting down all drug houses in this province, especially in the Cape Flats. Every time when this department is expected to step up and save people of this province from their misery, those running it would rather blame the South African police services for everything, but then attempt to take credit for every success story. Most domestic violent crimes, such as gender-based violence, abuses against children, and femicide in this province, have alcohol as a main contributory source. Not only does alcohol harm those who consume it, but also those close to them. It cannot be that this province celebrates financial collections made from the Provincial Liquor Authority, but does not use adequate financial and other resources to fight against harms created by alcohol. Speaker, these harms, which are out of control as a result of alcohol and drugs, also affect the budget allocation in other votes or departments, such as the Department of Social Development, which will have to spend more money in order to find more shelters for women and children who now remain homeless as a result of running away from drunkards and drug users. The same with our hospital, Speaker. In this province are always full on weekends as a result of motor car accidents and domestic violence incidents as a result of alcohol. Speaker, the amount allocated to the Department of Education needs to be spent on building more classrooms and more schools from quintile 1 to quintile 5. We also need schools with better facilities and resources. It cannot be that only quintile 3 to 5 schools receive these resources. When it comes to 1 and 2, we are provided with stories. Township schools also need sporting facilities, Speaker, and catering for different sporting codes. Before the end of this year, every learner who applied for school placement needs to be placed in school as well. Speaker, Speaker, the amount allocated to the Department of Infrastructure is enough to make sure that we have better road infrastructure to mitigate against traffic congestion, as well as building better bridges, which will not be flooded in the period during the period of natural disasters. Speaker, the budget needs to speak to spatial planning in the inner city and rapid development of affordable social housing, as well as building houses for the indigent in townships. In conclusion, Speaker, as long as all these issues are not resolved, the EFF will not be supporting this vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I recognize the NCC. I recognize the NCC.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, 43 million has been allocated to create jobs and equip job seekers to be competitive in the job market. Cape Town has welcomed more than 3 million international passengers in 2024, but the income that was derived was clearly not shared with the people of Cape Town. The NCC hope that this budget will be used to develop the Khoi First Nation sites, support small businesses, and also develop the sites for tourists in the colored areas so we can grow and create real sustainable jobs. Speaker, almost 4 billion rand has been budgeted and allocated for safety in the province. The NCC really hope that the Premier in his infinite wisdom does not take another billion from safety and send it to other departments as he usually does. Speaker, the million sent to the city of Cape Town shotstopper has failed dismally. The Mako for community safety officers was raided, 30 guns get missing and not one reported to the police. Speaker, from the 2nd to the 8th of June 2025, 115 shooting incidents occurred. And in less than a space of a week, 20 people killed on the Cape Flats, and Leap was nowhere to be seen. As the NCC, we say that Leap has not yielded the outcomes compared to the financial input. The NCC notes the amount budgeted, and we will make sure that we keep an eye on the expenditure. Now, we note that 6.4 billion rand in infrastructure is set aside for housing as per tabled by the budget. And the Western Cape, as we speak, has a backlog of about 600,000 people on the waiting list, the housing waiting list, meaning the backyard dwellers is also increasing. The department will spend around 3.25.5 million rand on informal settlements in the Western Cape. However, the residents in these informal settlements are not from Western Cape. Being rewarded for stealing land is very encouraging. Now, Speaker, I see the health budget is tabled and it indicates that 100 billion rand over the period of 3 years will be spent. It is clear that the lack of services is not the shortage. The shortage of pills and equipments, that is what needs to be done. We need the service to be delivered, but in this case, there's no service delivery. Speaker, we note that 101 billion rand allocated over 3 years is also allocated. The National Minister allocated additional funding to education and health. So as the NCC, we will be happy to see that the MEC reinstate the 2,407 teachers that was released in 2025. Education is the cornerstone of education is the cornerstone of our communities, and the lack in access for colored people to schools is our biggest challenge. Let this budget be beneficial to the poor. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I recognize the Freedom Front Plus.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, the Freedom Front Plus wants to just say, on behalf of the Freedom Front Plus, I just want to say that the departments must spend the money. We tax people in South Africa, and if that money is not spent, then we have overtaxed our people. And so I want to appeal to the departments and to the ministers to ensure that we achieve the maximum benefit we can to improve the quality of people's lives. A budget is a tool. It's a tool that we use in order to achieve the standards set by the Constitution so that we can deliver on the promise of a better quality of life for all our people in the province. Having said that, I want to reaffirm that in the previous sitting, I raised my concern on the Premier's vote, the education vote, and the infrastructure vote. And I would like to make sure that the Premier takes note that funds held in reserve must eventually serve a purpose because it's taxpayers' money and money must be spent. We are not here to profit off our people. We are here to benefit, or rather to spend the money to benefit them and improve the quality of their lives in the Western Cape. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much. I recognize Alderman.
Thank you, Speaker. No declaration from Alderman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I recognize the ACDP.
Thank you, Speaker. At least I can clarify myself quickly when it comes to education and health. What I said was education budget gets given to them. Out of their budget, they must now provide for safety. That is a concern. The same with health. When you engage health, they will tell you, we must take our money, we must provide healthcare, but now must also have a budget for safety because our doctors is not safe. The facilities is vandalized. That is the problem I have. So when you go to social services, you have the same problem. Because we don't have proper police services, it's inadequate, it's under-resourced. And if we have the devolution of powers, at least police can do their work and that money can be better allocated to serve our people better. I thank you.
Thank you very much. I recognize Good.
Thank you, Speaker. We have no further declaration.
Order. I'm Good.
I said, thank you, Speaker. We have no further declaration.
All right. Thank you very much. I recognize the DA.
Honourable Speaker, just a correction. It's not the growth for job strategy. It's the award-winning growth for job strategy. And for that reason, the DA fully supports the budget. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Honourable Members, that concludes the declaration on the consideration of the votes and the schedule of the bill. Are there any objections to votes 1 to 14 and the schedule of the Western Cape Appropriation Bill? Are there any objection?
We object.
Object.
There is an objection, so all those in favour. My apologies, I was just informed by the table staff that there was a hand on the hybrid system, but that hand has subsequently dropped, so I will continue. All those in favour of the votes and the schedule of the Western Cape Appropriation Bill being adopted, please say yes.
Yes.
Those not in favour of the votes and the schedule of the Western Cape Appropriation Bill being adopted, please say no.
No.
No. No.
I think the A's have it. The votes and the schedule of the Western Cape Appropriation Bill has therefore been adopted. The Secretary will read the third order of the day.
Finalization of the Western Cape Appropriation Bill, including the clauses and the short title.
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Finance.
Dankie Speaker. Ek vra hiermee dat hierdie huis die Weskaapse Begrotingswetsontwerpwet 4 van 2025 asseblief finaliseer. Dankie.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. There being no list of speakers, are there any objections to the bill being finalised? No objections. Agreed to. Honourable members, was that an objection? Honourable members, I want to reiterate the importance of this process. We need to ensure that Parliament fulfills its responsibility to ensure that the process is followed according to the rules and to the law. And just for the record, I have put the question to the House. There was no objections, and therefore it has been agreed to that the bill is therefore finalized. Honourable members, with that being said, the bill will be sent. My apologies, the Secretary must first read the bill. Secretary, read the bill, please.
I thought that was missing.
Western Cape Appropriation Bill.
Thank you very much. Honourable members, the finalisation, including the clauses and the short title of the Western Cape Appropriation Bill, B4 of 2025, are therefore approved. The Secretary has read the bill, and the bill will therefore be sent to the Premier for assent. Honourable members, that concludes the business for the day. The Secretary will now end the meeting and all members will be exited from the sitting. The House is adjourned.